Hey everyone, in this video we're going to do some more solving by factoring. The main difference is the equations are going to be a little more challenging than the previous video. Everything else stays the same. Our directions: solve for all real values of x by factoring. First equation, x squared minus 4x equals 32. So if we try to solve it the way that we're given, right, we can factor the left side by a greatest common factor of x. We have x times x minus 4 equals 32. Which seems like it should work. But what factor pair of 32 are you going to use and set the factors equal to? Well, there's a lot of them. The only time we're really sure about the factor pair is if it is equal to 0. So that's actually how we need to start. We need to start by getting this 32 onto the other side. So we'll start by subtracting 32 from both sides. Now we have a trinomial equal to 0. That's a much better setup for us to solve with, because now we can factor our trinomial. So we need factors of negative 32 that add to negative 4. So negative 8 and positive 4. So now we have two factors whose product is equal to 0. Now we can use the zero product property, which says at least one of these factors has to be 0. We're confident in that. There's no questioning that. Now we can set x minus 8 equal to 0 or x plus 4 equal to 0. So that means either x equals 8 or x equals negative 4. So our solution set is negative 4 or positive 8. Next up, we have 9x squared equals 6x. So again, our first step is setting this equation equal to 0. So we'll subtract 6x from both sides of our equation. Now we can take a greatest common factor out, which is 3x, and that's going to leave us with 3x minus 2 equals 0. And now we have two factors whose product is equal to 0. So using the zero product property, either 3x equals 0 or 3x minus 2 equals 0. So we have either x equals 0, or let's see, 3x equals 2, x equals 2/3. So our solution set is 0 or 2/3. And again, with all of these, we can take our solutions and plug them back into the equation. So let's say you messed up and did it wrong. You didn't set equal to 0. When you go to check your answers, they shouldn't work. And that will give you an indication of, oh wait, maybe I have to approach this in a different way. Next up, we have 2x squared plus 30 equals 16x. So again, that first step is setting the equation equal to 0 by subtracting 16x from both sides. Helpful to write it in standard form when you do that, so that factoring's easier. Now, there's a greatest common factor of 2, and by factoring that out, it's going to make our life easier. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Let's fix that 0. And now we can factor our trinomial. So we need factors of 15 that add to negative 8. So that's negative 5 and negative 3. So we can set each factor equal to 0. Now again, 2 equals 0 doesn't make sense. That's not true. X minus 5 equals 0, well, add 5 to both sides, x equals 5. X minus 3 equals 0, add 3 to both sides, x equals 3. So our solution set is positive 3 and positive 5, or positive 5 I should say. Next up, we have negative x squared plus 11 equals 10x. So in this case, I'm actually going to move the two terms on the left over to the right. So I'm going to have 0 equals x squared plus 10x minus 11. Now that looks a little bit weird, so let's just switch those sides real quick. So x squared plus 10x minus 11 equals 0. We haven't changed the equation, we've just changed how it looks. But the benefit of moving these two terms to the other side of the equation is now we have a positive x squared. Always want a positive x squared term, so that factoring is just a little bit simpler, at least in my opinion. So now we go ahead and factor. So we need factors of negative 11 that add to positive 10. So it's going to be positive 11 and negative 1. Now we have the product of two factors equal to 0. So that means either x plus 11 equals 0 or x minus 1 equals 0. So either x equals negative 11 or x equals positive 1. So we have negative 11 or positive 1 as our solution set. Moving on. 4x squared minus 2 times 10 minus x. So first thing we need to do, distribute the 2. So we have 4x squared equals 20 minus 2x. Now we need the equation equal to 0. So we'll add 2x and subtract 20 from both sides. Now there's a greatest common factor of 2 that we can factor out. So we'll have 2x squared plus x minus 10 equals 0. Now we factor the trinomial. So we have 2x and x to start out our factors. So let's see, factors of 10, we need to place them so we get positive 1 in the middle. So let's see, what if I go 5 and 2? Well, I'd have 5x and 4x. So if this is positive and that's negative, that would do the trick. So we set each factor equal to 0, so 2 equals 0, 2x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. Now, 2 doesn't equal 0, nothing to solve for there. 2x plus 5 equals 0, we'll subtract 5 as our first step, and then divide by 2, so x equals negative 5 over 2. Add 2 to both sides in x minus 2 equals 0 gives us x equals 2. So our solution set is negative 5 over 2 and positive 2. Next equation, 4x squared plus x minus 14 equals x squared plus 20x. Again, need to set it equal to 0. So we'll subtract x squared from both sides, so that gives us 3x squared. Subtract 20x from both sides, so minus 19x, minus 14 equals 0. Again, I know I'm not writing minus x squared, and some of your teachers might want you to do that, so nothing really crazy, right? Minus x squared from both sides, minus 20x. Hopefully we're comfortable with doing that out. Now we can factor. So we have a prime leading coefficient, so let's see if we can factor it with our trinomial technique. Otherwise, we can revert back to using grouping. So let's see. 3x and x, so we need factors of 14 that if we multiply it out, we get negative 19, or factors of negative 14, I should say, give us negative 19. So let's see. 7, let's make that a 7 and a 2. The reason I'm guessing that is because 7 times 3 is 21, and I feel like that's a good place to start. So I'd have 21x and 2x. Well, that actually is perfect because one of these has to be negative. So we'll make the 21 negative and the 2x positive, and that would get us our negative 19x. Now we have the product of two factors equal to 0. So that means either 3x plus 2 equals 0 or x minus 7 equals 0. So solving our first factor, we have 3x equals negative 2. Divide by 3, x equals negative 2/3. And our next factor, x equals 7. So our solution set is negative 2/3 or positive 7. Perfect. All right, this one looks like it's going to be a little bit of work. So we have x plus 8 times x plus 2 equals negative 4x minus 32. So the first thing we got to do is we have to distribute the left-hand side of our equation. Even though it's in factored form, and that should be really convenient for us, it's not equal to 0. So that's not really advantageous. So we'll distribute. So we have x squared plus 2x plus 8x plus 16 equals negative 4x minus 32. So combining our like terms on the left side, x squared plus 10x plus 16 equals negative 4x minus 32. Now we need the equation equal to 0, so we'll add 4x to both sides. So that's going to be x squared plus 14x. And and we'll add 32. So that's going to be plus 48 equals 0. Okay, so now we need to factor. So x and x. So we need factors of 48 that add to 14. So let's see, 12 and 4. Well, 12 and 4, that would be 16x. No. 16 and 3, that would be 19. 8 and 6. Yeah, I think that's the one. 8 and 6. So x plus 8 times x plus 6 would give us 8x and 6x, which is 14x. Now we have the product of two factors equal to 0. So that means either x plus 8 equals 0 or x plus 6 equals 0. So we can subtract 8 from both sides here. X equals negative 8. We can subtract 6 from both sides here. X equals negative 6. So our solution set is negative 8 or negative 6. Next up, x plus 5 quantity squared equals 16. Now, x plus 5 quantity squared is x plus 5 times x plus 5. And that's equal to 16. Again, that's factored form, which should be nice for us, but it's not equal to 0. So we have to distribute everything out on the left side. So x squared, so weird looking squared, x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25 equals 16. So we have x squared plus 10x plus 25. Need an equal sign in there. Let's make it all equals 16. Now we need the equation equal to 0. So we'll subtract 16 from both sides. So x squared plus 10x plus 9 equals 0. So we need factors of 9 that add to 10. Well, that's going to be 9 and 1. And we have the product of two factors equal to 0. So that means, I need a little more room, that means either x plus 9 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 9 from both sides here, x equals negative 9. Subtract 1 from both sides here, x equals negative 1. So our solution set is either negative 9 or negative 1. Okay, so again, we're starting out in both of the last examples with factors on the left side of the equation. But we can't jump right into anything because it's not equal to 0. Right? We need that 0 product property to know 100% that we are correct. Our next equation, we have negative 25 equals 24x squared minus x to the fourth. So we need to set the equation equal to 0, and we can start by adding x to the fourth to both sides. Then we can subtract 24x squared from both sides. And we have minus 25 equals 0. Now that our equation is equal to 0, we can factor. We have a trinomial, so we can use guess and check. Our factors are going to start with x squared, since we're multiplying 2x to the fourth as our leading term. And we need a factor pair of negative 25 that adds to negative 24. So negative 25 plus 1. So our factors are x squared minus 25 times x squared plus 1. Now we should notice x squared minus 25 can be factored further using the difference of two squares. So we have x minus 5 times x plus 5 times x squared plus 1 equals 0. We can't factor x squared plus 1 since that's the sum of two squares, not the difference. So we have the product of three factors equal to 0. So that means either x minus 5 equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0, or x squared plus 1 equals 0. So solving our smaller equations, we have x equals 5. We have x equals negative 5. And if we try to solve here, since we can't factor, we'd have x squared equals negative 1. And if we stop and think for a second, we're trying to square a number and get a negative value. Well, squaring means multiplying a number by itself. And anytime we do that, whether the number is positive or negative, our result will always be positive. So there is no real solution to x squared equals negative 1. So that means that we have only two answers, and those answers are negative 5 or positive 5. Okay, next up. X cubed plus 9x squared minus 51x equals 4x squared plus 33x. So we'll start by moving the two terms on the right to the left so that the equation's equal to 0. So we have x cubed plus 5x squared minus 84x equals 0. Now, the first type of factoring that we want to do here is a greatest common factor of x. And that's going to leave us with x squared plus 5x minus 84 equals 0. And then we can factor. So we have x, and x equals 0. So we need factors of negative 84 that add to positive 5. Well, let's see. Well, we have 42 and 2. That's not going to do it. Those are too far apart. 7 and 12. That actually might work. 7 and 12. Because we have 12x and 7x. One of them has to be negative. So if we make the 7 negative and the 12 positive, that would give us plus 5x, which is perfect. So now we have the product of three factors equal to 0. So we set each factor equal to 0. So x equals 0. X minus 7 equals 0. X plus 12 equals 0. Well, x equals 0, that is a solution. So we leave that. Here we can add 7, so x equals 7. Here we can subtract 12 from both sides, so x equals negative 12. So here we have three values of x in our solution set. So our solution set is negative 12, or 0, or positive 7. Right, so this time we took out a greatest common factor, which had an x in it, so it gave us another solution. Right, another key point there is we had x cubed to start. Right, x squared, we typically get two answers. X cubed, we get 3. There's a reason for that. Okay, last example. X plus 1 divided by 3 equals x plus 7 divided by 2x. So first, this looks kind of different than the equations that we're dealing with, but intuitively, I'd want to cross multiply here. And that's actually a good start. So we're going to have 2x times x plus 1 equals 3 times x plus 7. Now, even though we have factors here, we don't have the equation equal to 0. So we need to clean this up first. So we'll distribute the 2x. So we have 2x squared plus 2x equals 3x plus 21. And moving our terms to the left side, so it's equal to 0, we have 2x squared minus x minus 21 equals 0. So we can factor this, 2x and x equals 0. So let's see, factors of 21, negative 21. So we have 7 and 3. So let's see, let's put a 7 there and a 3 there. I'd have 7x and 6x, which is perfect. I want this to be negative and this to be positive. So we have two factors whose product is equal to 0. So that means either 2x minus 7 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. So solving here, we have 2x equals 7 and x equals 7 over 2. Here we can subtract 3 from both sides, so x equals negative 3. So our solution set is negative 3 or positive 7 over 2. And again, the key here is that cross multiplication step. Once we do that, then we've turned it into an equation that looks just like any of the others that we solved in this particular video. But as we see, a little bit more challenging. The first step, have to set that equation equal to 0, and then we use all of our factoring techniques to come up with our solutions. As always, we can always check our answers. Right, plug those numbers back into the original problem and see if it's true. If it's not, maybe you messed up your factoring, maybe you didn't set the equation equal to 0 before you factored and solved. Any different issue you can look for. right? Now it's up to you to go practice and feel confident in solving any equation that you're given, that you're told to solve by factoring. Click the Amazon link down below for my algebra workbook so you can practice on your own. Give the video a like, and before you go, click that subscribe button so you can see more videos just like this. Thanks for watching.